It may have spent more time in the courts than in the county clerk's offices, but Michigan's brief recount did reveal a lot about our electoral process. We'll talk about it this morning. Plus, Detroit City Council members on District Detroit, regional transit, and more. Today is Sunday, December 11th, 2016, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. What a wild week it was, with a whole lot of back and forth and punching and counterpunching over a recount of Michigan's presidential election ballots. From the outset, no one expected the recount to change the results. There certainly won't be a change now that the recount has been called off, so no harm, no foul? Well, not exactly. The few hours of counting that we had exposed some big problems in our system. Quite a few votes weren't eligible to be recounted for one reason or another. Some tried to assure us, don't worry, just because they weren't recountable doesn't mean they weren't counted correctly the first time. What? Do you buy that? Or perhaps you agree with the person who said to me this week, you know, I've got more confidence that my Dancing with the Stars vote is going to be counted than my presidential ballot. Now, some said to me this isn't anything new. We've long known that old equipment and poorly trained poll workers are a problem. Well, funny, that doesn't make me feel any better about it. And we're going to talk about what we have to do going forward this morning. Also coming up, time to check in on that divide between the glowing headlines on city happenings and where the rubber meets the road in Detroit's neighborhoods. For example, the Pistons' splashy move downtown still needs city council approval. Now that we know that it means a $35 million commitment of tax dollars, will the votes be there? We'll talk with members of council about that and more today on Flashpoint. Well, the strange odyssey of the Michigan recount is over, but the story was less about who won and more about the integrity of the voting process. It has always troubled me that the vote changes in any recount. But here we find that many votes weren't recountable. What does that tell us? Well, let's talk about it this morning with the Civil Rights Director for the City of Detroit, Portia Roberson, former Detroit City Council member Sheila Cockrell, and from Motor City Muckraker, Steve Neveling. And Steve, I wanted you to be here because you were the first to report this past week that a lot of these votes were not going to be able to be a part of this recount. It doesn't really matter that we didn't get that far down the road. That told us a lot.
No, it said a lot. What I found out was that 59% of the precincts in Detroit couldn't be recounted. They weren't eligible for a recount because the number on the ballot box did not match the number on the polling books. And that is very concerning because Hillary Clinton got 95% of the votes in Detroit, in the biggest city in Michigan. And 59% of those votes aren't recountable. 2/3 almost of the vote not going to be eligible. And in this case, it's a case of one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. One bad vote messes up the whole batch. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, what I found on Election Day, and I actually covered Election Day from the beginning to the end and went to precincts, and I could not believe what I found. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people who left without voting because the ballot machines were broken. There were dozens of broken ballot machines. There were people who, when they voted their ballots because the optical machines weren't working, were placed in an unsecure location. So they couldn't even actually see that ballot go into the optical scanning machine. So you had these myriad problems. There was one precinct where people went to vote and there were no ballots in the morning. And they were told to go home or stay there to vote. And we're talking in a place in Detroit where historically people have been disfranchised, and we're seeing it now. Portia, that's just a very thin slice of a lot of the problems that we saw. I don't know that we would have seen them necessarily if we hadn't had this recount process start, but I have had, as I mentioned at the outset, people have told me, well, that's the way it's always been. We've got these problems with machinery, with polling workers. I don't feel any better knowing that that's how it's always been. No, and that can't be the way it is in the future. I mean, it can't be. And when we talk about Detroit as a world-class city knows how to count votes. They know how to get votes in on time. They know how to count everyone's vote. And so, you know, I worked on voter protection during the campaign. I was in the room as we got complaints early on. Like Steve said, first thing in the morning, we were getting complaints that we're out of ballots. And it's like, you have 4 years to prepare for a presidential election. There are a number of things that happen at a polling place
during the voting day that you can't control. But being prepared with machines that work, testing those machines rigorously beforehand, those are the things you can control, and they have to be controlled. We can't continue every 4 years to ask people to get out and vote, and they get there and they can't cast their vote, or they have to wait in line, or have to come back later on. Because as Steve said, we have people in the city who are taking a short time, a lunch break. They're coming after work before they pick up their children. If you get there at 5 o'clock and you know your children's daycare center starts charging you $1.50 a minute at 6:01, you've got an hour to vote. You've counted in that time because we've begged you to get out there and cast your vote. And if you get there and you can't do it, it's unacceptable.
In fact, the broader message here, the chilling effect that this could have, that your vote really doesn't necessarily matter, isn't going to be counted, that's a problem too, Sheila.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the work that we do at Citizen Detroit, which is aimed at Detroit voters, we start with a qualified voter file that if we looked at it, we look at it from the period of people voting from 2008 to 2014. There's literally, by actual review of the data, 50% of the people who are considered Detroit voters have not voted any time between 2008 and 2014. There's something wrong with that. First of all, there's over 1 million people on the database the numbers don't comport to the actual number of adults in the city. So I mean, there's issues that start there. But I think, I mean, in this era where there's an assault on the right of people to vote that's coming nationally from people trying to make it harder to vote at the polls, to add something like this set of issues is really, really a problem.
I am hesitant to let this sound, though, Steve, like it's just a Detroit issue or just an issue for Hillary Clinton supporters. And we had all these other stories that came out, like in Gibraltar, we had a voting box, a ballot box that was sealed together with duct tape that kind of completely discounted its contents. I mean, this isn't just Detroit.
No, it's not. I mean, Kent County found massive problems. Genesee County found massive problems. There were problems all over the state. And I think that's what's unfortunate about ending this recount so early, is this gave us an opportunity. This put the election system on trial in a very orderly process where people came in and recounting them by hand. We could have found out how serious this problem was.
We kind of stopped the autopsy.
We did.
Right.
We stopped it prematurely, and it's unfortunate because it was for a partisan reason. And I think if there's anything good to come out of this partial recount, is that we need to figure out how we're going to fix this election system. People have fought and died in this country, and we still can't have a fair and accurate election.
Where's the confidence level then, as I mentioned at the outset, that the original vote was counted correctly?
I don't know that there is confidence in that. I think that there is a lack of confidence in it. And I think what Steve said is on point again, that, you know, we would not have known how flawed this system was but for this recount. So if for no other reason am I grateful that we did this recount. Did Jill Stein have a chance of winning Michigan? No, we knew that going into this. But it really put the election process, the voting process on trial, and we got a chance to see, and now we have to correct it.
Well, and to Steve's point, if we would have gone on with the recount, it would have shown us how drastically different it was than the original.
Right, but I think we know enough to know that certainly in the city of Detroit, and I would say in the state of Michigan, we need to do a real in-depth review of the age of voting equipment. What is the protocol for getting equipment updated? Is it a local resource question? What is the city clerk's budget for running elections in the city of Detroit? Certainly, it'll be very important coming up in 2017.
Or anywhere.
Anywhere, but yes, just not in Detroit. But what does the budget look like? How old are the machines? What is the actual training protocol for people who are poll workers? Should there be a system that says, you know, after a certain number of years, it's time for somebody else to get a chance to have these functions? I mean, there's a whole set of discussions that I think what's been revealed throughout the state gives us a chance to have that before the next election cycle.
Steve, later in the week, you wrote an editorial, which is not always what you do on Motor City Muckraker.
Only my second one.
Only your second one, but you felt like it was time for Janice Winfrey to resign. Given, though, that the problems that you see are not just in Detroit, how's that the best answer?
Well, the problems are definitely widespread. But the extent of the problems in Detroit far exceed the problems that we have seen in any other counties. I mean, we're talking about people who had to wait 2 hours in line to vote, many of whom left. Poll workers were not trained sufficiently. They didn't know for example, what to do when the machine broke. What were they supposed to do? Well, 59% of the machines broke. Those machines, by state law, are supposed to be rigorously tested before the election. We should have known that this was going to happen. And this is just months before that. I found out that Janice Winfrey, on the clerk's site, had given the wrong application for absentee ballots. She was giving the absentee ballot applications for people who would have been voting in the primaries. And she knew about this. We had talked to her about it, finally wrote a story about it. Mayor Duggan's office went down there and fixed it in an hour. I mean, that's completely unforgivable. She did not take seriously the sacrifice that people who have fought and died for this country.
I'll let you both weigh in on that as an answer.
Well, I saw Steve's editorial. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think she's going to resign, but I do think she's opened herself up to a considerable challenger at her next election, which is this coming year. And I think that's healthy. I think that it's necessary for people to come in and question what happened. Why were we not prepared for a presidential election? As I said before, it's not as if this came up and we weren't prepared for it. Now,
who knew?
Detroit has had some, elections that have had to happen kind of on the fly.
Yeah.
This was not one of them. So I think that there is going to be reason that there are going to be some people who come forward and say, I can do it better. They may have some experience in technology, and they're going to work hard to get that position.
Well, I think it's it's the end of 2016. The election cycle begins in May of 17. So I think actually to focus on Winfrey resigning or not kind of clouds what really should be the agenda, which is to answer some of these real structural questions. Where's the budget? What is the budget? Is it being spent properly? What are the protocols? Because if she leaves now, what's going to happen? It's not like the county situation. There's nobody there's no group of people that replace her.
In an era when I can say, Alexa, order more paper towels, are we still stuck in a really old model of voting? Have we gotten so afraid of somebody's ability to hack,
yes,
or do we need to get sort of a 21st century view of the way that we should be voting?
We do. I mean, we need to take a wholesale look at this entire issue and see if there's a better way to do this. I mean, there's no reason that 59% of the precincts couldn't be recounted. Yeah. And that's not to mention there were seals that were broken. I mean, this stuff doesn't have to happen. I mean, we are in the 21st century. Right. This can be done a lot better, and we owe it to people. The state is giving millions of dollars to billionaire developers for projects in in downtown areas, but we can't afford money to make sure that we have a democratic system that works. And where's the priorities?
Yeah, I would say you don't have to worry about Russian hackers if you're putting your ballot in a box that goes under a desk and nobody ever finds it. I mean, if that's what we're dealing with, I mean,
you've hacked yourself.
If you've hacked yourself, you don't have to worry about anybody else hacking you.
Terrific conversation. Thank you all very much for being here. Really appreciate it. When we come back, we'll be joined by two members of the Detroit City Council. We'll talk about some big issues facing them now and in the new year. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. It's great, you guys.
What is RTA Energy doing to help support Michigan communities?
They support a lot, like the National Cherry Festival in Traverse City, Art Prize in Grand Rapids, not to mention help fund the Career Technology Center at Monroe County Community College. And also helping make the streets of Detroit safer.
Wow, that's a lot.
You're telling me. I'm exhausted. RTA Energy, know your own power.
I'm an actual rescued tomato, which means I'm just as fresh as any other tomato. I can still be sliced or even smashed in the ketchup. I wasn't a real pickle until Forgotten Harvest came along. They rescued me, along with millions of other tomatoes from grocers, and put us in the hands of Metro Detroit's hungry. Ooh, gotta go.
You can help us feed the hungry. Please donate today at ForgottenHarvest.org or call now at 888-332-7140.
Don't forget to donate.
Find your path to success at Wayne County Community College District. From high-tech facilities to experienced instructors to a range of programs that give you the skills you need for in-demand jobs. Everything you need to jumpstart a new career or advance your education is at a campus near you. And we're here to support you every step of the way. So why wait? Register today.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Andrew Humphrey. You can see snowfall across Detroit and much of southeast Michigan. Here's a wider look. We have a winter storm warning still in effect for Detroit and all of southeast Michigan through the entire day today and into tonight. In fact, here's how much snow is going to fall. We're looking at as much as 6 to 9 inches of snow right here in the city of Detroit. That's by the end of tonight. Right now, snowfall is very heavy across much of downtown Detroit and the rest of southeast Michigan. Indoors, certainly the best place to be. More updates coming later this morning.
And welcome back. Number of big issues are facing or will soon face Detroit City Council. Let's run down some of them with two City Council members, Raquel Castaneda-Lopez from District 6 and Scott Benson, a council member from District 3. Good to have you both here. Let's start with the big news that we've seen, and as I called it the Pistons move during the commercial break, and you were both quick to point out proposed Pistons move, which I think tells me a little bit about where you both are on it. You're waiting to see documentation, but what are your concerns about this? And does it not feel like a slam dunk to you to have the Pistons back in Detroit?
As I stated before, for me, if there's any team that I would like to see in the city again, the Pistons would be #1 for sure. I'm a huge fan. However, given that this is related to public and tax incentives, I think it's incredibly important if we're going to be refinancing these public bonds to make sure that there's some type of revenue stream for the city and that there's benefits coming out of it. So I stand committed to the same position I had when the initial deal was negotiated with Olympia Development, that we must have accountability in terms of workforce development and hiring Detroiters, as well as community benefits tied to the surrounding community in relation to traffic mitigation, security, and just making sure that the development that does come is going to benefit the surrounding neighborhood. So I love the Pistons, would love to see them in Detroit, but if we're going to be refinancing for an additional $34.5 million, that has huge implications. So we haven't seen any documentation yet, so I want to be able to review that thoroughly and make sure there's benefits there.
Your thoughts, Scott?
Oh yeah, I'm very excited about it. And so to have the Pistons moving downtown, to have all 4 sports teams, it means just activity year round, and the fact that all the concert business is coming downtown as well versus staying in Auburn Hills is huge. We haven't seen the numbers. I want to see how this deal actually works, and the devil is going to be in the details. And so I want to see what type of community benefits come out of this. We know what the administration has already negotiated. What is the community going to negotiate with the Pistons and Olympia when it comes down to the practice facility, and where are they going to locate? And so we have a couple of ideas, but we still don't have control of land, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're still waiting to see how all the chips fall.
Because this is supposed to happen fall of next year, this has to happen fairly early, I would assume, in the new year. We had an interesting situation over the past couple of weeks, though, where we've also been alerted to the fact that Dan Gilbert believes that we are now out of office space, at least for big footprint employers, which is an astonishing thing to say about the city of Detroit, given where we've been. But give me your thumbnail on how you feel like things are, where that level of business activity is right now. Is that overselling it, or is that right?
I think there's still opportunity, and it depends on your approach to development. And so maybe not for massive developers coming down wanting to focus all of their offices in one space, but I think having a more dispersed type of development strategy would be beneficial. And I know we keep focusing on downtown and investing in that area, but to truly see the city come back, we need to spread out some of these developments that are happening. And if it is a big company that wants to come in, to really incentivize and push them to start investing in some of the neighborhoods for their office space. So I'd like to see that happen.
Scott, try to now draw the thread for me then because you get the same emails, I'm sure, every day from your constituents that I do about this disconnect that some people still insist is in place between all this great news that we constantly hear about what's going on downtown, midtown, maybe even the riverfront, but are we connecting it to what's going on in the neighborhoods? Is it benefiting the neighborhoods?
I would say no and yes. Number one, you're going to see all the property values are rising in the core city and in the tertiary areas. So in your midtown, in your Corktown, in your villages, you're going to see the property values rising. That's because the market is taking care of itself. But we need to do something to spur more development and more demand in our neighborhoods. And that's what we're going to need to do, a little bit more creative thinking and figure how we're actually identifying and distributing resources within the city of Detroit. And so you see all the development incentives going into the downtown area. That's because that's where the demand is. You're going to see your property values rise rise and a rise in your quality of life once you start to see the demand in the neighborhoods. And then how do we do that? How do we make that happen? And that's been the million-dollar question, and one that not many people have been successful at. But as time goes along, and it took us 70 years to get here, and so it takes us a couple of decades to get back where we want to be. But it's really how do we continue the hard work and the advocacy, and the fact that we have district council persons actually helps. So I know that I'm very active and always advocating for new development in our districts, and so we've seen some new development in the 3rd district as way of 600 jobs in the last year in the I-94 industrial park. So we're starting to see that, and it's really about making sure that you have the advocacy, and I know myself and I know that Raquel, very strong advocates for our districts.
We're getting to the end of this first experiment with the district system, as a matter of fact. Raquel, we just saw the RTA vote fail. Transit remains a huge issue for a lot of citizens of Detroit. How do we take, what's the next bite of the apple? What do we do? I
think the conversation needs to continue. I think we need to look at what people don't really usually define as public transportation, but in terms of promoting walkability and bikeability. A lot of people don't have cars in the city of Detroit, whether you're a young millennial and you don't want a driver's license, or you're a senior citizen and for some reason you can't drive anymore. So I think rather than just looking at rail and buses, but looking at how do we redesign our communities in relation to planning to really allow for more walkability and bikeability as a viable means of public transportation, in addition to pursuing the larger funds to create a regional transit system, which I do truly think that we need in the city because of the amount of people that work in the suburban communities and vice versa that commute back and forth on a daily basis.
Did that expose, though, this continuing problem we've had over the years of this disconnect between the city and its suburban neighbors?
Devin, for me, racism trumped good common sense here. So we had an opportunity to actually have a regional transit system, something that's going to include the entire region, and we let fears and those who would be fear mongers trump the day. And so Detroit went for it. You had another county go for it. You had 2 that didn't go for it. And I believe it was a message that was coming out of it. And I believe in the end,
it was racism, though, instead of not being able to make the case to, in Macomb was where it failed by a large margin, not being able to make the case of this is why this is good for you.
And in my anecdotal information that I get from Macomb County residents, that played a big role in it. And there were people, there was a message, there was an active campaign saying why this was best for everybody and why it's going to improve the entire region and make us more competitive, and that didn't save the day. That did not win. I believe the negative story won, and I believe that was a run-around race.
Mark Hackel on this program said that he felt that it was incumbent on the people who supported RTA to make their case to Macomb County voters, and they failed to do it. They failed to convince them of why this was in their best interest rather than something charitable that they should vote for somebody else.
Sure. I mean, if you drive a car, you have access to transportation, you don't see it as your need. So why put money into helping other communities per se? So I think people approached it from really kind of a place of what's going to service me and my community versus helping the region as a whole. And when you kind of silo yourself in that regard, then it's really difficult to move forward regional initiatives such as the RTA.
Devin, we have to be able to compete with Washington, D.C., with New York City, with Houston and other large metropolitan areas, and they all have one thing in common: regional mass transit. We don't have a working system here, so I'm not sure how RTA could have said it any louder and clearer. If we want to be competitive in the future, we have to have regional transit, and this was our first opportunity to do it, if I'm not mistaken, ever, and we failed. Although most regional transit votes failed the first time, so I'm hoping that in 2 years, when it can get back on the ballot,
I don't think it felt like the first time to a lot of voters, because they've been told before that we've got this, and you kind of got an eye roll about it. We're going to take a quick break. A couple more questions for my council members. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. We'll be right back.
For 85 years, the Capuchin Soup Kitchen has been serving people. But we're more than just about food. We nourish people by
distributing clothes and household goods,
growing food on our urban farms,
stretching children's minds through tutoring and the arts,
challenging addictions and helping reclaim lives,
offering new starts through job skill training,
working for a more just, peaceful world. Contributions are needed. Please send yours now.
A long time ago, when life was filmed in black and white, Blue Cross started as an idea on how to bring really great health care to people like you, your family, and your friends and neighbors all over Michigan. Today, the idea is stronger than ever. Strong like this. And just like always, you can count on us to be there, protecting you, wherever you happen to be. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Confidence comes with every card.
It's Carson's Christmas Countdown Sale this Sunday through Thursday. Most stores open 7 a.m. to midnight. Save up to 50% store-wide. And don't miss over 100 bonus buys, like ladies and men's sweaters up to 70% off. 1997 ladies pajama sets. Ladies fashion jewelry 50% off. And 55% off Santa's Pantry candy and gifts. Shop in-store or online. Carson's, your store, your style.
Local 4 is proud to be the only local television station to be honored as a weather-ready nation ambassador by the National Weather Service. So what does this mean to you? Well, it means we're always looking out for your safety. That's why we're involved in our community with special weather events. And every day on Local 4 and click on Detroit, we have the most accurate forecast possible, alerting you to severe storms, revealing what's happening in your area with 4-zone weather. It's all to make sure you're always weather ready.
Couple seconds left. I wanted to get two other really quick issues. First, Raquel, the ID card initiative that was announced this week, something I know that you're very excited about, but now the rollout, you need to get people understanding what it is.
Yes. So the Detroit ID card we just launched this Wednesday, so that everyone knows it's only for Detroit residents. Anyone over the age of 14 can go and apply for one. 3 simple steps. You can go to the website to get a list of all the acceptable documents. Call the 1-800 number to make an appointment. We have a site on the west side at Patton Park Recreation Center, as well as on the east side at Samaritan. It's $10 for seniors and kids, and then $25 for all adults. And it's really set up to help remove barriers for people, but there's a whole lot of perks you can get with the card.
Issue, exactly right. And Scott, I asked you earlier about what your biggest worry was right now, and you're thinking about 7 years from now.
2024, we have some huge obligations coming up with regards to our pensions, and we're looking at a window of between $167 million annual payment or up to $400 million annual payment, depending on how the market performs going forward. But that's what keeps me up at night right now, making sure that we're able to protect our pensions and that we don't fall back into a situation where we can't support our debt and our city services. And there's a threat of that. To have just come out of bankruptcy and run into 160. So we need to make sure that we're generating revenues.
Thank you both very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here as well. Meet the Press is coming your way next, right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. We'll see you next week, right back here for Flashpoint.